what I had at the time when I was a child was not normal. When I was a teenager, I definitely wanted to go to college. I had no idea if actually being a lawyer was for me.
Hello and welcome to the What You're About podcast with me, Chad Abood. And this is where we get to meet and discuss with incredible leaders, entrepreneurs, and the inspiring voices that you know to understand how they've uncovered their natural gifts and brought them into their career. And not only that, but we know how much pressure there can be to conform to whatever the style, that's historically been in your organization or in an industry. And so there's also moments where you uncover your gifts, but you're not even sure if you can use them. And so that's what we're also going to get into is like, how do you fight through that current? Because there's always going to be challenges. And, when I was thinking about the types of guests that I wanted to have on this first season, this is one of the people that just jumped to my mind because not only is she an incredible voice that a lot of people have resonated with and appreciated her story, but she's also shared kind of her path, which wasn't always so easy. And so I'm really excited to get into how she traversed the journey. And so Jessica Nguyen, thank you so much for joining us. We have a multiple award-winning chief legal officer at Lexion. And, we know from Jessica, you know me, you know Jessica already. And we already know from her that, Lexion's an incredible legal tech company that uses AI to scale the power of lawyers and legal teams. And I implemented legal tech myself. So I'm a massive proponent of what you're doing, and you're making not only businesses better, but lawyers' lives better, which is, so important. And her recognition personally, the list is long, but the themes are legal innovation, thought leadership, top 100 legal influencer. And, I think the awards are great, but I think it's the recognition of what you're giving that really matters to me. And I think all of those themes all speak to what you've given here. And you're also a mentor at Venture Out Startups, which helps founders validate their startup ideas. I mean, I know starting my own business, how important it is to have thought leaders who are in the growth stage and the scale up stage to also validate what you're doing. And so you just have such a massive impact on many fronts, including the personal journey. So thank you so much for joining and sharing your time with us today.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Chad. And I've been following you on LinkedIn for years and was excited when you reached out to me. I am
No,
excited to
this
be
is
part
great.
of this journey and share my story and be able to provide mentorship at scale.
Yeah. You know what? That's actually a great one. That was actually one of the main pieces that got me into LinkedIn was I was thinking about these types of conversations that I was having throughout my career in the law firm life, in-house life. And what I found is I'd meet people like you, in Toronto, or if I was traveling for something, and there'd be a great one-to-one conversation. And we'd both have ideas about how our industry could be more human and more efficient and more engaging, but then it would fall away. And it was actually LinkedIn that showed me what you just said, which is the scale piece. And, that's what you've done so incredibly well. And, so when I think about this, though, the Jessica that we see now, winning all the awards, the CLO, traveling everywhere, your face is everywhere. But I think the important part for everyone that's listening and watching is it doesn't start at the end, right? It starts at the start. And there's going to be a lot of folks that are somewhere on their journey saying I just didn't have the opportunity, or I didn't have the support, or I don't have it today, and I don't know how I'm supposed to get through it. So maybe take us back with some of the pieces that you shared about what did the beginning of the journey look like for little Jessica? And were you always thinking I'm going to be this award-winning CLO, or what was in your mind when you were starting out?
Oh, so definitely hard no on I thought I was going to be award-winning CLO, not just from when I was little, Jessica, even from when I was in law school. I had no idea if actually being a lawyer was for me while I was in law school. If I'm being very
Wow.
honest, Chad. Well, think about my career now and what I do. And clearly, what I do, I'm very passionate about. Those are not the things that you do when you're in law school, right, Chad?
100%,
No.
100%,
And also
100%.
and also not what you're doing when you're at a law firm, if we're also very candid. So honestly, just going back to, well, law school is surprisingly a long time ago now, and I made that real feel really real and tangible when so I was a keynote speaker at the Asian Bar Association of Washington last Friday, and I still remember like it was yesterday that I was the law student volunteer helping with registration and check-in. So it was surreal to be like, oh wait, now I am at that level where they
Right.
asked me to be the keynote.
You're handing over your jacket to the volunteer who was doing the check-in, and you're like,
I
it wasn't that long
know.
ago. I was on the other side of the table.
Right. But when I was that person, of course I was not, I would never have guessed that I would be, say, have anything of importance to say, to be the keynote. Absolutely not, Chad. So
Wow. What? Okay, so that's a powerful piece. So you're saying that like you, and I think a lot of folks think this, even right now, is that like I don't
yeah.
have anything that matters, right? Like what is my experience matters to share. And so when you were thinking about like what your future was going to be, like what was even on your mind, or what activities were motivating to you? Like what were you like when you were a kid?
I was just very resourceful as a kid and very imaginative and creative, if I'm very honest. When I look back as when I was a small Jessica, I I wasn't, my parents were immigrants from Vietnam, and I didn't have a community of family around me, a Vietnamese American community of other refugees. So I was very lonely. And so what
Mm.
that mean, and then all of my siblings are, I was an accident. My parents did not plan to have me. All of my siblings, all of my siblings are 10 plus years older than me. So I lived
Wow.
like an only child as well. And so I so my parents didn't buy me toys. They didn't enroll me in sports activities. I was home alone a lot, so I just took care of myself, making my own meals and being so what that and so all that loneliness and being alone led to a lot of ingenuity, creativity, and being self-sufficient and resourceful. There's a lot of all of those hardships. There's a lot of amazing pros too,
Did
and
you feel that way at the time? Like, were you saying to yourself, like, "Whoa, I can cook this stuff at this age. This is pretty cool," or were you kind of confused, like, "Where is everybody?" You know?
uh, I thrived in it. I guess when you
Wow.
know there's no different, then you think it's really
Mm.
cool. And also, I had friends from school who thought it was really cool. They're like, "Wait, Jessica, you're allowed to just go home, be by yourself, watch whatever you want on TV, and cook your own meal." Like, I'm like, I lived off ramen and hot pockets and like rice and soy sauce for basically my entire and bologna sandwiches, like meat out of a can. Because I'm from Hawaii as well, Chad.
Yeah, yeah.
Meat out of a can, delicious. Like that's like I grew up feeding myself, and I think actually having all that freedom, a lot of kids thought it was cool, and so I thought it was cool.
And so you have all this freedom. Clearly, there's things you have to do, like burn your mouth on hot pockets. Like, there's things that you have to do to survive. So we get that. But did you see all this free time that you had in like a really productive way, where you're like, okay, I'm going to use my creativity and imagination to try this, or were you like, there's this big vacuum of time? Like, what was your like natural energy? Were you like trying new things, and like what were you doing when you were like figuring it out all by yourself?
It all the above, Chad. There's a lot of searching and introspection when you
Mm.
have all that time and energy to do so. And so what I found was, okay, so here's an example. So back in the days, it's probably not a thing now. I really wanted a troll doll. Remember
Yeah,
those?
yeah,
Those
I
were
remember that. Yeah, of
super.
course.
Those were like the hot toy in
Yeah,
the early '90s, late '80s. The troll.
yeah, yeah.
Of course, my parents, being my parents, are like, "Yeah, we're not buying that for you. You're gonna have to figure out how to get that yourself." How does a 9 year old figure out how to get a troll doll herself without shoplifting? But
Right.
I found a way. So just through, I don't know, mail activities or word of mouth, I found that if I went door to door and sold really bad stationery, you can accumulate points, and you can trade in those points for a troll doll. And I did. I went door to door as a 9, 10 year old in my Hawaii condo complex and sold enough stationery to get my troll doll.
Where did
So
you even find this stationary supply? Like, how did you even make that happen?
I think I went through all the mail because I was home a lot as a kid. And then someone was promoting, hey, sell the stationery to earn points, and and then you can transfer it to get a toy. I was
That's
like, wait,
amazing.
I found a way. So, I mean, Chad, you've looked at my background and you've read my content. Are you surprised that little
Yes, I
Jessica
love
found
it.
a way to get that troll doll, even if her parents wouldn't buy for it, and she was not legally allowed to actually have a job.
You know what? It's so great because like you can like almost see this through line like to where you are and what you're doing now, right? Like there's so much about technology and AI in the legal space that is like being created in the moment all the time, right? Like
Mhm.
it's always getting better. It's always new. Like, and I've been on the tech side of the industry of a different industry. And it's like, you're always trying to make it better and faster and newer and have a new imagination for what else you can do. And I guess it's funny when we think back about like, you always had this spirit in you, right? Like, well, what else can we do? And what else can I do? And how can I find my path there? And, it feels like there's going to be a through line all the way to like why you ended up in the technology space. And so, okay, so you're making all these troll doll money, you're getting all the collectibles, and then what? Like I know that you didn't have the ability to get all this financial resource support that other
Mm-mm,
kids did to go to school, right? To go to law school
mm-mm.
and become a lawyer. How did you make this happen? Like, was it the ingenuity and the innovation and resilience of a kid like pulling you through, or was it something else?
It was the same when I think about it, and you're this is like therapy. I love this chat. And when I really think about it, it's the same attributes from little Jessica who really wanted that troll doll that got me through college into law school. That level of creativity and resourcefulness. Okay, so I want to go to. So when I was a teenager, I definitely wanted to go to college. Not in Hawaii. We call it the mainland, the U.S. mainland. And so, how am I going to get there with no contributions from my mom and dad? Not
Right,
just, and nothing to give me a competitive advantage. They're not going to pay for an SAT prep course, and
right.
they're not going to pay for my college applications. So, Chad, what it really took was just this extreme resourcefulness. I worked in fast food. In Hawaii, though, fast food, in addition to the McDonald's of the world, is we sell plate lunches. So I was the woman at the counter, like making plate lunches. I also spent every free moment in high school at the college counselor's office. No one hung out there but me. I was the only nerd.
Huh.
And what does that mean? Well, this is still paper system. Every week, I would be in her office looking at her file folder system of scholarships that are available that she'd get notified.
Right.
She'd get an email, and then this is old school, dial up. She'd print it out and she'd
Yeah,
put it
yeah.
in the file folder. Every day I would scour it for available scholarships and see if I was a fit for any of them, and I would apply. So getting to college was I cobbled together the resources to get me there, because it turns out when you go to college, and I went to a private college, it's not just tuition. There's
Yeah.
all sorts of cost, a room and board, food, spending money, and I needed a new wardrobe. Turns out my Hawaii wardrobe is not exactly a fit for a Seattle wardrobe where I'm
Yeah,
based.
yeah, yeah. That's incredibly resourceful. And I know some of it's going to come from the circumstance where you're like, if I want something and there's no
Yeah.
one handing it to me, then I got to go and get it.
Yes.
But there must have been the motivator pulling you too, because that takes a lot of effort to do that, right? To be in the office every day, scouring the thing, making the applications, getting the rejections. What was it, do you feel like, looking back, pulling you so strongly to be like, I want to go to the mainland, I want to go to college, maybe I want to go to law school? Like, was there some sort of inspiration from your youth, or like, why was your mind thinking, I got to go do this thing?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think at the end of the day, it was this, though I'm a very positive person, and you can tell I'm a glass half full kind of lady. Like, despite all the hardships, I don't dwell on the past. I don't
Yeah,
think about woe is me. I'm very grateful for what I have. But
right.
what and where I am today, Chad, very to be very honest, but the motivation was I still recognize that what I had at the time when I was a child was not normal. Because remember,
Hmm.
my friends would come over and be like, wait, you get to have all this freedom. You get to, watch whatever TV you want for unrestricted hours of TV. I watched a lot of TV as a kid because there was no streaming, right, Chad? There was like it was like,
Totally.
oh
Just
yeah, the
Price is
night
Right.
of show.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Price is Right. Just going, 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 going.
that's right. I was big on TGIF, those
Yeah, yeah,
sitcoms, and I
yeah, of
love
course.
90210. But I watched a lot of TV, especially probably TV that was also inappropriate for my age range as well, to be very clear. But with that freedom, is you also see that like what you had wasn't normal. You
Mm.
had friends who your peers had were actively engaged in activities like sports and soccer. I didn't have any of that. Wait, your parents just bought you a troll doll? Like that's a thing? I didn't wait, your parents just enrolled you in SAT prep course and as a result you were prepared and got a good score. That's a thing.
Right.
You also recognize I'm also recognize the disadvantages that I had despite overcoming them. And so the goal is I don't want that forever for my future or for my kids. That is
Mm.
the motivation.
It's really interesting that you had this purpose in you at such a young age, because like we've all known people that have had like various versions of this story where they had a lot of freedom and
Mhm.
their purpose didn't always drive them to say like, no, I don't want this. I for sure want something that's different and has like more layers to it. And so it's really interesting that you clearly have always had like a drive to like move your scenario to a different place. You've always had the resourcefulness, you've always had the imagination, and whether you always had this by circumstance, you had a lot of independence. And so
Mhm.
when you moved from Hawaii to the mainland, was that a big shock for you? Had you spent a lot of time like traveling across, or was this like a brand new environment? Definitely new weather and a new wardrobe. And so like how was this environment where you were like trying to get used to the Pacific Northwest?
So, none of those things. So I actually showed up in Seattle for the first time when I my freshman orientation. I didn't have money to like do college tours and visit Seattle. I had dial-up internet in Hawaii in the college counselor's office, and it looked really cool on the website. And we had one Kaiser High School alum that went to Seattle University, and she loved it there. And so that was it, Chad. There was no tour of Seattle. So I showed up at Seattle's airport, SeaTac Airport, for the first time when I went to college, and it was for me it was exhilarating, honestly. Like for the first time to ride a cab, all I had with me was a small box and a suitcase, and I loved it because I felt even that it was a fresh start. That whatever the view I had, I think most normal humans would be scared to be alone, to be
Mm.
somewhere for the very first time. But if you had my background and my personality and my perspective, it was also a way to like a new beginning of my life that I can build something really great that I choose without, and yeah, in a new environment. I loved it, Chad. But that's not for
That
everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I went away for school too. Like I'm in Toronto, but I went to the U.S. and I was by myself there. I was part of a team, so it was different because I was going for sport, so it was different. Like I didn't have that. You were
Mhm.
meeting everyone for the first time, which is even harder. But that definitely resonates about kind of the agency of like making a choice.
Mhm.
Like I'm really big on agency. It's like a huge thing for my nature, but like I need to feel like I'm choosing. I don't want to know if I'm going to live forever in this city, in this place. Like if I do, cool, as long as it was my choice. And I see in you this like drive for like innovation, whether it's like personally or professionally. It's like so fueling for you to be like,
Mhm.
what's new? What's next? Where can we go? I haven't seen this before. What can I make from this? Which is actually like really inspiring for this industry, because the legal industry, from a broader perspective,
Right.
hasn't always gravitated to this, which I think is like something that's so special about your message is you're like always like that friendly face encouraging people to say like, look at my journey, look at how I kept pushing, kept trying to find that new thing. It's possible, it's doable, it can be a great thing. And so when you do your undergrad, you're getting into law school, and you had said off the top, like, I don't know if I'm going to be a lawyer. Like, what happened? You had this like positivity. You're in Seattle. You got your box. You got your suitcase. And then what happens through those years of schooling where you're like, ooh, I don't know if I want to be, if I want to do this thing.
Yeah. Well, I also needed money because it
Mm.
wasn't like I had a trust fund or parental support. You also think about like when you make these choices of taking risk and choosing to innovate, choosing to take a career risk or get out there and be out there, what are the upsides and what are the downsides? So I did take a law firm job once somebody out there, I didn't get a job through on-campus interviews, Chad. I didn't get some fancy law firm job out of law school. I was again resourceful. And so I made friends with the law school career office, and I expressed to the counselors there, I'm not sure if I want to be a lawyer, but maybe I should give it a shot because I got this great education here. And so the law school counselor said, well, a recruiter here, there's a recruiter here from this law firm. The firm was called Miller Nash at the time. I think they've merged with other firms since. It's been a while since I graduated law school. And I just got my resume printed out and I handed it to her. And I said, I heard from the counselor that you are looking for a corporate and transactional associate. And I would love to be considered for that role. Here's the experience that I've had, and here's where I think it's transferable. And I think, honestly, it was just the fact that I asked was she was I it was she I closed her, because most of the law students, period, that all she goes to, they don't ask. You know,
Right.
their whole approach is I need to get the highest grades and get on law review, a journal, and do moot court, and then my resume will speak for itself, and I'll get recruited. I like went up there with my elevator pitch, and I think that sold her, because I think what she saw as a legal recruiter was it takes all kinds for a law firm to be successful. Yes, the whole, what is that called, the rainmakers and the doers. And she saw the crystal ball that maybe one day that much younger Jessica, maybe not so little, you know, like little troll doll level Jessica, could be something great. And she recruited me from there.
You know what I think is so cool about that is, and this is something you touched on that not a lot of lawyers or law students
Mm-mm.
are trained to do, is like you're reflecting upon like, here's how what I've got can help you. And
Mhm.
it's not one-to-one experience. You hadn't worked at a different firm and you're like, I did all these same deals. I just want to come to your firm because it's closer to my house. It wasn't that. It was thinking about like, here's the experience I've had. Here's what I think I've got to offer. And here's how I think I can parlay that into this
Mhm.
role, which is like, that's some of the best advice I think that for anyone that's like building a career, moving into like sidestepping into a new role. It's like reflect on what you've got in there. You have
Mhm.
a history of experience, and then think about like, okay, what are the core values and skills that I've got, the things that I deeply care about? And then if I think about this opportunity, how can I frame that up to be supportive of that opportunity instead of just trying to get the best grades, put it all on a piece of paper, throw it into the ether and hope that some firm says like, I choose you. Like your path was much more intentional. And so you did this, and what did you make of this intentional choice? Was it what you predicted, which is like, no, I don't think I want to do this, or were you using your resourcefulness and finding a new home for it as a private practice lawyer?
You know, it was the latter. I didn't dislike my private practice experience, but then the recession happened.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was a private practice lawyer at Miller Nash, and then I moved on to a regional mid-sized law firm, Karen Cross, here in Seattle, I saw a way, you know, Chad, those skills and attributes that you see in me in terms of relationship building, communicating and leading with value over how what do I get from you? Every when I
Mm-hmm.
communicate with folks, whether I was interviewing for a job or now trying to sell technology to other lawyers, it's about them. It's not about me. It's about how we make this technology will make your life easier so you can focus on more strategic and fulfilling work. It's about stop doing mind-numbing work that's and repetitive work. So I've always communicated in that way. And maybe that's just who I am. And also my hospitality background is leading with the so what? So what for you? How do I take care of you? So I actually, when I was in a law firm, I thought it was very possible that I could be a partner there. Honestly, I had no other perspective. It's not like I had professional role models, right, to tell me, Jessica, have you considered this career in house and being a general counsel? No one told me that. So I thought, Chad, before this that massive, terrible recession in from 2008 through 2010, that it could be possible that I'd be a partner and be someone that could be a great client development partner.
Mm-hmm.
Those were my strengths.
Mm-hmm.
But then the recession happened, and they didn't need a lot of corporate, transactional M&A and real estate lawyers, which is what I was doing
And
at the time.
so you touched on something that's really important, and that I know is a big focus of our legal industry, many industries that we're not amazing at yet, which is like the mentors and the resources that you can relate to. And so
Mm,
you're going through like you think you've got this career path, you're trying to build it, recession comes, now there's a roadblock. And you said you didn't have a lot of like baked in mentorship. So what did you do? Like, who did you turn to? How did you try to figure out like what can be next for me? Like, you're a resourceful person. So, I'm curious to know, like, what did you do?
I probably had about 5 coffees per week and tap into my network. So while I was in law school, I did intern for in-house legal departments. And so I reached out to everybody that I interned with, my everybody I knew that I knew, my intern manager, as well as clients that really enjoyed working with me at the firm.
Mm,
Have coffee with them saying, well, when things turn around, I would love an opportunity to work with you. So the all those coffees, I was thinking my next goal is give it a shot to either do two paths, go in-house and work at an in-house legal department, or go on my own and be a solo practitioner and leverage my relationships with the clients for the work that I was already a known quantity, be
mhm,
significantly cheaper than the firm because I
mhm,
got zero overhead,
mhm.
but provide the same value. But one of those coffees landed me at my first in-house legal position. The company was Avalera,
Yeah.
and it's huge now, but the time it was 65, 70 employees, and I was their first legal hire, and that was really formative of my career today, quite candidly.
Yeah. That's a big move, like when your first in-house move, especially if you're the first lawyer, that journey that you're building a lot and you're learning a lot in real time. And so when
Mhm.
you're thinking about like you're resourceful, you're creative, you're independent, I would think that these skills would be super valuable. You go inside an organization that's never had this function before.
Mhm.
And so, I'm sure they were helpful, but where were you finding the struggle, or were you always able to like be yourself, this person who's like a thoughtful communicator and always finding the resource? Like, did you ever find a moment where you were like, I just don't know if I can keep doing this thing? Or were you just always like threading the needle and finding the path?
So it is really hard for me to not be myself. I am a very transparent, authentic person, and it's a struggle for me to have to hold back. Honestly, it's not a strength of mine. Authenticity and realness is both, and directness is both a strength and a weakness. What I have found though is that by working, I was fortunate of to work at smaller, not like huge giant law firms, smaller firms, was that I was permitted to be myself personality wise, and even in a startup environment. The struggle I had actually was at larger organizations. So
Mm,
I did do a 4-year stint at a wonderful company, Microsoft. You may have heard of it, and I loved my experience there, and I was generally able to be myself. But what I did struggle with was maybe what I did make it clear to me was maybe the world isn't a meritocracy,
mm,
especially at a larger organization where so much of your success is dependent on visibility and the advocacy of your manager, which
yeah,
are
that's a
out of
big
your
one.
which can be out of your control. And that to
And
me,
no one teaches you about that either. Like, you learn that in real time.
yeah, yeah, you do. And it's like, yeah. So that to me was a turning point to what led me to look outside of a very wonderful job. That's, yeah.
That's an important one too, because I think that I always think of it as kind of like two halves of a circle. You've got like your personal kind of development of like, what are my gifts? How can I bring this out? How can I use it to like lift my career, lift others? But the other half's your environment. And you can bring all of your gifts, but if you're bringing your gifts to an environment that either doesn't need them, doesn't see them, doesn't want them, or they're not like valued for whatever reason,
Yeah.
that's like swimming upstream. It's pretty
Yeah.
exhausting. And
Yeah.
you start to like doubt your own self. Like, you're like, is this
Yeah.
really valuable? Should I be doing this, or should I just do what other people are doing? But here's the problem with doing what other people are doing is you can fake it for a little bit, but it becomes exhausting. Like, when you're
Mhm.
not yourself over a long period of time and you're just trying to mimic what other people are doing, you can do it, but it's exhausting. And
It
so
is.
when you were like going through that 4-year piece and you were starting to realize the environment for a variety of reasons might not be my future environment, were you reflecting in that time of being like, oof, I think I've got more to offer, but I'm hitting a ceiling here, and I'm willing to give up this, what's an incredible brand, an incredible org, to like take another leap? Like, were you afraid of the risk, or were you like, no, I can't be held back into the box anymore?
I was not. I mean, for the same reason why I was not afraid to show up in Seattle in college for the first time, despite never having visited Washington State, honestly. So no, I wasn't. I just do a quick check of like, what's the upside and what's the worst that can happen.
Hmm.
So what's the worst that can happen? I can leave Microsoft and then what? I go to a company and it doesn't work out. Then I'll get a new job.
Right.
And I had lived through the hustle of having nothing and the challenges there. So it wasn't scary, Chad, because I had gone, remember the recession. Again, law school, no job lined up. Third year in law school, met a recruiter. It went fine. I had to work for it, of course, and hustle and be creative. Recession, got laid off, had to hustle, and after some hustling and endless amounts of coffee, it's probably why I'm addicted to Starbucks, is I landed a job at a great startup. And then also through relationships. So by the time I got to Microsoft, I'd already been about 10 years out of law school and had a much larger network and brand and reputation and experience. So I felt confident to the worst that could happen was not that bad.
You're also really great at, and I tell this to people all the time that are trying to build like a LinkedIn brand, say like, give first.
Yes.
And the way that you talked about like thoughtful communicating, whether it's the plates or wherever it's going to be, like in the counselor's office with the legal recruiter, it's like, how can you like bring either a positive personal piece to like a conversation, or how can you like offer value to someone first? Because if you do that consistently enough, you're building up a network. Like, a network isn't asking people for things or just telling people about yourself. It's like offering value, whether that's in a personal way, whether that's in a professional way, in a broad way, wherever you see that it can be helpful, because then you can tap into it. And that's something that you shared a little bit, is like, you've then gone back to your network when you're in a moment where you needed to make a change, and you were able to like have those coffees. People are happy to do that with you. People are happy to come up with opportunities or think of other people that might have an opportunity. And so as you were going through that piece for yourself and you were landing that next role, were you thinking to yourself like, I need to like push into an industry that's, super novel and innovative? Or like, what brought you to like the legal technology space beyond just the tech of Microsoft?
That's a really good question. And so a couple things. My manager, who's a great lawyer, asked me, "What do you want to do in 10 years, Jessica?" And I actually was thought about that. And I said, I really loved my experience being the first and building the legal department at Avalara. There was no building to be done at Microsoft. It was already a middle-aged technology company. And so that question was a catalyst for me, like, I've been here at this great job for almost 4 years. My resume is completely dated. Maybe let's see if I could add value. Like, I can find a job that can bring me back that energy and fulfillment that I felt building at Avalara. So that brought me to the job to, and then I saw actually I've been an early LinkedIn user. I've been a member since 2005. I remember reading content for development, and they had an ad promoted for PayScale to be the first legal hire at the company. It showed up, this might be a job suited for you. I was like, So I want to, so that led me to my journey at PayScale. But the funny thing you said, Chad, though, is about giving. I, for my entire life, little to now, I just give. I give, and I don't give with any sort of expectation that I get anything in return. I give opportunities. If I try to help if I can, I give speaking. I'm overloaded on speaking opportunities. I give opportunities, like speaking opportunities, to help folks with visibility. But to go back to the pay scale thing, it's very interesting you said that, Chad. The CEO a very successful tech company, wasn't so, and when he was younger, he needed some help with getting a resort or hotel manager to give him accommodations for his South Asian wedding. South Asian weddings are like multi-day affairs. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
fun. And he knew that my law firm at the time knew what did work for that hotel resort. And he asked me, could you make a call to the hotel manager to make an exception for his wedding? He wasn't a successful CEO at the time. And I did, and then I did make a call, and he got an exception to some sort of rule about the hotel, and he had a fun wedding. Fast forward about 8 years. Okay, 8 years now that I gave that gift. I gave that help with no expectation of a help in return. 8 years later, his name is Kabir. I saw that Kabir was connected and linked in to the hiring manager CFO of Payscale. So when I saw the opening on my LinkedIn feed, naturally, you know what I'm not gonna apply and be one of 500. I'm gonna ask Kabir to give me an introduction to the CFO and
Right.
just for a coffee to see if there's a fit. And Kabir was happy to do so. Because
Yeah.
why? Because I have a relationship with Kabir where Jessica would help me if I was in a bind. And I was, and she'd proven to me that she's a giver, and he gave back. And so I
That's the
really think
data
that's the
point.
part.
You
Yeah.
created the data point first, right? Like people don't wonder whether is she a good person? Is she resourceful? Will she like work hard? Will she follow through? Like all of these things that are basically the job. You proved that by like creating that opportunity for him. So you had already done the data point without asking for anything, without getting anything. You created that data point. And yeah, sometimes there's like a lag time to when, you may need that support back, but you did it without knowing that you needed it. And that really speaks volumes to people. And then they're more than happy to help. And this happens all the time. It's such a great example. And it's a really powerful one, but it's such a great example for folks like, even when you said you're overloaded with speaking opportunities, it's also because you give your time to do it. You give your time to help other people. And so, you're continually like seen because you're helping others first. And
Oh, okay.
I
I
think,
haven't
I always
really
think
thought about
that's the
it.
goal. I think helping people first is like, it's not like Netflix where you click and watch. It's not that
No.
fast. There's like a lag time. It's
Or
like
the
AOL.
ROI is not fast. No,
Yeah, it's like
it's
30
90
hours. You remember the floppy disk? You'd put it in and then someone would pick up the phone and your internet would break. It's like slower and it
Yeah.
takes time, but like
Yes.
it's incredibly sustainable
Hmm.
because you have a whole network of people that want to help you. And so, when I think about where you've taken the journey, since then and, building out with Lexion and like all the innovation and how resourceful that you've been, one thing I was curious about, because I've been talking about this a lot with folks, is where did you find mentorship? Like, where did you and how did you find belonging? Obviously, you're creating it for people for years on LinkedIn, but like, did you ever find it for yourself or did you just have to create it in order to start building that community?
Yeah, I have always just built. I think of every person. I don't formally call people mentors because I think I learn different things from different people, and I take that and make myself better. Or maybe I learn something like a what not to do. And so I have learned from everybody, Chad. I have learned from folks who were past managers of mine, both good and bad. I just by talking to people, I'm learning from you, just having this conversation and how you frame it. I love that. So I'm resourceful, Chad. I think that I have a mindset that you not only have something to give, but you can learn from everybody, that they have something unique to share. And I've always lived with that mindset. And so whenever I'm thinking about, I have a goal in mind, whether it be a troll doll, whether it be whether it be a job out of law school or a job because you've been laid off from a law firm, I have a goal in mind. And like I need to find a job. I got to pay the bills. I don't got a trust fund, sadly. And I think about the people that who can help me be better and fill the gaps to help me achieve those goals. And I reach out with kindness and humility. And what I found is most people, because they've seen one, that I am that person. And if they were in a bind, I would try to help them too. And then two, most people are generally kind and giving too. Most people, not everybody, but they want, if they can help, they want to help. So mentorship, as I have created, I think everybody is a mentor and teacher in some way. And I don't bucket anyone as I just had one amazing mentor in my life
Mm-hmm.
because I actually learn every day from the young folks. My nephew, who's 21, was teaching me new terminology. I was like, this is what mid means and this is what cat means. I'm like, what in the world? Like market cap or cat? No, Jessica, no, Auntie, it means this. It means you're not trustworthy. I'm like, oh no. So I'm learning all the time, and that's going to help me learning the general, terminology. You're laughing. Like that's not a real word, Chad. But
No.
it helped me. That's coaching, right? Because you know what? There are young 21-year-olds in my company at Lexion. So it helps me connect with the
Yeah.
21-year-olds, even if they think I'm much older. I think of that. I'm not a cool mom. I'm not a regular mom. I'm a cool mom. But at least it helps me communicate. And so I'm learning. I'm learning
Yeah.
from my 21-year-old nephew.
Well, and you offer it first. I think there's kind of like, I always think of these like three pillars of communication, like
Yeah.
curiosity, humility, and selflessness. And I think when you lead with those three things, then people want to engage with you. Like it's not just about communicating, it's communicating in a way that people are excited and want to absorb and want to support. And when you're curious and when you have humility, you're not jamming your worldview as a universal truth on other people. And I think that that's a big difference in the way that most people communicate. And clearly you do that so well and you build that for so many people on LinkedIn and in real life. And so I guess the last thing that I wanted to ask you is that if you would think back to whether it was small Jessica or Jessica along the journey or, you know, someone else that would be listening to this thinking that like they don't know how to get through kind of their version of the Great Recession, like what would be your kind of tip back to your younger self now that you've gone through all these different phases of your journey?
But I think that it's going to be okay. Like I have lived through a lot of hardship, and so you can control, focus on what you can control, and which is your mindset. And when you're feeling really down, really think about what are really the downsides of my situation, and what can I control to make sure that I don't those meet those downsides. That happens, and you realize that it's not going to be that bad, and you just got to persevere, and it's going to be okay. I have lived through a lot of different hard times, whether it be my childhood and getting no emotional and financial support from my parents to help me get to college. And it was okay. And then I got out of my control again is I got laid off because my practice area dried up of work, and I had to work at it, but it was okay. And at the end of the day, most of the problems that we have, it's going to be okay. And we need to focus on what we control and focus on shifting our mindset to just dwelling about the negativity, focusing on negative, the positivity and not the negative aspects of it. Because if I just focused on that's not fair, I didn't have all of those handouts and SAT prep course or parents that bought me a troll doll, I wouldn't be where I am today, Chad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for everyone that's listening and watching and knows your journey, you know, I've really been taken by the curiosity, the resourcefulness, the resilience, and also like the way that you thoughtfully communicate with people. You like give first, you try to like think about what would be helpful for them first. And these are
Mm-hmm.
attributes that have taken you like all the way from getting the troll doll to serving the plates to landing in Seattle with the box and like through the hardships of up and down in your career to being, you know, the award-winning CLO that we see now. But I just wanted to make sure that people like think back on the journey, right? Like it wasn't always this like what people
No.
feel like is perfect, so great and wonderful. Like it was using the abilities that you had within you that were within your own control and constantly tapping into those. That's what pulled you out of every valley to like make that next leap. And so, you know, I hope that
Yeah.
folks think about that and go back and listen to what Jessica had to say and, you know, like tag her, tag me, let us know like questions, thoughts. Clearly, you know, you're going to get a thoughtful response from Jessica about how her journey unfolded and how she got through it. And I just want to thank you so much for sharing your time, sharing your journey and inspiring so many folks that you do every day. So thank you so much for this.
Thanks, Chad. This was really fun to talk through it and actually reflect upon a lot of things that I haven't thought about in a very long time.
No, I'm glad. I'm glad. Who knows? Maybe there'll be a LinkedIn post in there at some point. We'll start seeing the journey about plate girls coming up and troll
Oh,
dolls and who knows the appearances they'll make.
I have not thought about troll dolls in gosh, 20 over 20 years. But yeah, this has been really reflective because honestly, too, that's how I got a job at Lexion. I did the outreach to Lexion and I led with how I can help. Every
Yeah.
job, I always lead with how I can help. How can I help you?
That's really powerful. It's really powerful. And so, you know, I hope that's if anyone's going to take one thing away, you know, I think that would be it is like think being a thoughtful communicator in terms of like how you can lift and support somebody. You don't always have to have a golden nugget too, but it's like maybe you know someone that would be helpful for them to connect with, or maybe you can give them inspiration or an idea. It doesn't always have to be like a job. It's just like, how can you help somebody today? And it creates an incredibly powerful network, just as you've done, Jessica. So thank you so much. Thank you for everyone that was listening and watching, and hope that you have an incredible day.